What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It is me, Jello the Casual Card Gamer, and today we are doing an updated deck list of my old Xcode Talker deck profile that I did a couple of months ago. I guess I think around 5 months ago now. That deck was really fun to play, and I didn't find any problems with it except for one thing that happened, and that was the ban list. Our little cute baby dragon boy got banned.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really
But anyway, we have found a way here at the Filthy Casual Studio to figure out a way to get around that. And this is what I have come up with. This is the new and improved Xcode Talker deck patch notes S-Force. So that is what we're going to be looking at today. And let's just get straight into it, shall we? So starting with our main deck, we have our cheat coders, I like to call them, our 3 copies of Microcoder. If a Cyberse monster that we control will be used as a link material for a Xcode Talker monster, this card in your hand can be used as link material also. So basically it's your free flint to the fire that is your combos during your turns. And when it is used from your hand and is sent to the graveyard, you can search for a Signet spell or trap, or if it was on field when you used it as link material, you can search for a level 4 Cyberse monster instead. It is really good for being able to fish out codec, optimization, or conflict, or even Signet mining if you have to, if it's from your hand. And also there are a couple of level 4s in the deck that you can fish out as well. So that is Microcoder. Next we have 2 copies of Code Generator, continuing on with our cheat coders, and 1 Code Radiator. So they all have the same ability as Microcoder, which lets them be used from the hand as link material as long as you're trying to link summon a Xcode Talker monster, except the after effect of what happens when they're used is different. So for Code Generator, you're able to send a Cyberse monster from your deck to your graveyard, or if it was used from the field, then you can add it to your hand instead. Normally, this thing is coming straight from your hand to the graveyard as link material, so most of the time you're just sending things to the graveyard, and that's fine too because you're thinning out the deck. And Code Radiator lets you target a monster that your opponent controls, reduce its attack to 0, and negate its effects if it was from your hand, but if it was on the field when you activated it, then you choose 2 monsters your opponent controls instead of 1, and the same thing happens. So that's really good. Won't work really good against anything that cannot be targeted, but it's still a really easy search after going into something like shooting Xcode Talker. That's the only thing you can go into to search this. But anyway, yeah, you can get that and then go straight into access code from there if you have to. And that is it for our cheat coders. Moving on to some of the new additions of the deck, we play 3 copies of S-Force Aurafist. So we do not really keep this guy on the field, but if in the case that I do, its ability is your opponent cannot target any of their monsters in the same column as one of your S-Force monsters with card effects. When a monster your opponent controls activates its effect, you can banish 1 S-Force monster from your hand, destroy that monster. So it's reactive spot removal whenever a monster activates its ability. It also stops your opponent from being able to do things. So this is what I like about S-Force. They screw around with your opponent's field, and I love doing that. Yeah, so Aurafist is a Cyberse monster, so you don't get restricted from being able to do plays with the S-Force component of the deck after you start using Signet Codec, which normally you're able to proc off as soon as you start doing your link climbing. So that is it for this. Next we have 2 copies of Parallel Exceed. Yes, we have chopped it down to 2 copies. I received a comment on the last one that said they only use 2, and so I started trying it, and it works. It works with just 2. Chances of hard drawing it are not as high anymore because, of course, there is one less copy in the deck, but you still are able to search it off of codec because there is no level restriction. It just has to be a Cybers monster. So Parallel Exceed, when you link summon a monster, you can special summon it to a zone that monster points to, and then if it's special summoned by its own effect, you can special summon another copy of it from your deck. And that is really good because this deck is all about spamming things onto the field to make way for bigger monsters. Moving on, we have a Backup Secretary. We have 2 copies of Backup Secretary because one thing that I wanted to focus on in this was to make sure that you're able to hard draw the things that you need just in case, or be able to search things, or have the flexibility to still search other things while using Signet codec. So Backup Secretary's ability is very simple. If you control a Cybers monster, you can special summon it. You can just special summon it from your hand, and that is it. And you can only do that once per turn. And that is it for Backup Secretary. So now we move on to our one-ofs in the deck, and there are quite a bit. And so let's just get into it. So the first one-off is Swap Cleric. This is one of the cards that you want to be able to have in your opening hand so that you can play it right away, and then its abilities don't really matter. It's the drawback of its ability doesn't really matter. So its ability is if this card is sent to the graveyard as link material, you can have that link monster lose 500 attack, then draw 1 card. So it's a draw 1, and of course if you're at the beginning of your combos, it doesn't really matter if your monster loses any attack because you're just gonna flip it out for something else. So there is that 1 copy of Swap Cleric. I'm bouncing between having 1 and not running it at all, and maybe just putting in another copy of Parallel Exceed back into the deck. But so far, this has been, I'd say 50-50 right now. The 50% that is good is when I draw it, and the other 50% is when I don't. So, Swap Cleric. There we go. Next, we have Gachiri at Ignister and Dotscaper. I'm just going to put these 3 here because I wanted to talk about these. So Gachiri at Ignister can special summon itself from your hand. If just choose a Cybers monster you control, negate its effects, and you can special summon it. Then its second ability gives 1 monster you control protection until the end of your opponent's turn. So that's really good for making sure that the units on the board are able to survive certain situations. And of course, Dotscaper is Dotscaper. If it's sent to the graveyard, special summon it. If it's banished, then special summon it. And you can only activate each effect once per duel. So it's a 3 life, or 2 life basically, link fodder card. And one of the things that I wanted to focus on in this deck was to make sure that it was more flexible in terms of what you're able to search out in the deck with Signet codec in multiple situations. So originally, when I wasn't running Gachiri at Ignister or Swap Cleric, and I was running 3 code generators and the 1 Dotscaper, I would run into problems where if I already had a code generator in my hand, or I'd already used a code generator and Dotscaper had already taken its course, if I had put down Xcode Talker, I wouldn't be able to search anything off of Signet codec. So at least this way, if I do use both Dotscaper and code generator, by the time I bring out Xcode Talker, there we go, I still have options to pull from the deck to continue the combos. So there's that. And next we have Lady Debug, Firewall Guardian, and Cross Debug. So Firewall Guardian is a really good starter. If you're not starting on Swap Cleric, you want to start on Firewall Guardian because it special summons itself back to the field after it's used as link material on the field, and then you banish it after it leaves the field the second time. So that's really good. It's an automatic link 3 monster. Lady Debug needs no introductions. I only have 1 copy in because it is searchable off of quite a few things in the deck. So 1 copy of that. When it's normal or special summon, you can add 1 level 3 or lower Cybers monster from your deck to your hand. And Cross Debug can special summon itself if you control 2 or more link monsters. enough said. It's a dark attribute monster, and if I've already used microcoder, then cross debug is the next best search. So there we go. Next we have C Archiver, Link Infraflyer, and Scripton. So Scripton was a bit of a last second addition to the deck. I'd completely forgotten that the card existed until I watched a couple of other Xcode Talker deck profiles, and I said, oh yeah, that works too. So I originally did have 2 of this in this deck, even before I made the first deck profile, but this card makes you banish a Cyberse monster in your graveyard, and it can special summon itself onto the field, and that works really well with Dotscaper, because of course Dotscaper's abilities activate when it is sent to the graveyard and when it is banished. So that is 2 cards onto the field. Next is Link Infraflyer. It's a free special summon as long as you have an open arrow, and C Archiver does stuff in the hand or in the graveyard. So you can dump it with Code Generator, or if it's in your hand, it can still do the same thing. So that's really good for field spamming. And of course, we have the 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. This gives us a little bit of safety when performing combos or trying to survive our opponent's combos. So there, you need to have these. Moving on to the spells and traps of the deck, we have 2 Signet Codec. Went down from 3 to 2 to make space for other things, but Signet Codec is searchable off of microcoder, but if you open with it, then that's even better, because you can use microcoder to search other things that you need. Signet Codec lets you search for a Cyberse monster in your deck and add it to your hand every time you link summon a Xcode Talker of a different attribute. So you can do it as many times as you want. You can only do it once per chain, and you can only do it once per attribute. Thankfully, the Xcode Talkers are very diverse, so you can get quite a few searches off of this card alone during your turn, and it feels really good to do it. Next, we run, of course, 3 copies of Signet Mining. There are cards in our hand that can work in the graveyard, and it's perfect. And of course, it lets us search for other things in our deck and adds them to our hand. And lastly, we play for the Signet spells. We run 1 Optimization and 1 Signet Storm. So Optimization locks your opponent out of activating card effects whenever a Xcode Talker is attacking, and it helps with a little more. It helps the deck have a little more defense in terms of just defense in general, and it also lets you normal summon a Cyberse monster, but it locks you into Cyberse, which is no problem now because we don't run Union Carrier anymore. And Signet Storm, I run the 1 of just for fun. All linked monsters on the field gain 500 attack and defense. Link summons of linked monsters cannot be negated, and once per chain, if you take 2,000 or more battle damage or effect damage, you can shuffle your extra deck and special summon the top card if it is a Cyberse link monster. And everything in the deck is a Cyberse. Everything in the extra deck now is a Cyberse link monster, so there's no problems with that. So this is really fun. The only issue is if you are playing against a deck that runs lots of link monsters, then you sort of lock yourself out of being able to, so you kind of like outplay yourself at times, but more often than not, it should be able to help. Next, we run the 1 copy of Terraforming, and we run the 3 copies of S-Force Bridgehead. So this is the card that you really want in your field zone. When placed, it lets you search for an S-Force monster, and the only S-Force monster in the deck is Aurifist. So it lets you search out Aurifist to make sure that you can go into Justify later on, and also is a one-time battle protection for your S-Force monsters, which is really nice. But it is a little situational. It has the monster that's attacking. Oh yeah, the monster that's attacking your S-Force monster has to be in the same column as your S-Force monster, so it gets a little difficult there. But other than that, you should be good to go. Plus, it's really just for the just for the search. Next, we have Signet Conflict. When a spell, trap, or monster effect is activated while you control a Code Talker monster, you can negate that activation, and if you do, banish the card, and on top of that, you lock your opponent out of being able to use cards of the same name for the rest of that turn. I really like this card. The only problem with it is it doesn't negate summons. So if there are things that are being summoned that you really don't want to deal with, then this can't help you, sadly. But the last card in the deck, or the last 3 cards in the deck, Solemn Judgment, do help you whenever I don't really have to explain this, but I will anyway. So basically, you say no. You pay half your life points. You say no. You just put your hand up and you just no. And yeah, that's it. And you destroy the card. So that is it for the main deck. All right, guys. Moving into the extra deck. Let's get straight into it. So the extra deck was a little wonky because I've been playtesting online with a specific build, and then I realized I didn't even own some of the cards that I was playtesting with. So this is it. The only thing that I would really change is having a second access code. You know what? I'm just gonna do this first, and then we'll get into it. So first, our non-Code Talker Link 2s. We have Splash Mage, and Update Jammer. Splash Mage lets us special summon a Cyberse monster in our graveyard, but it negates its effects and locks us into a Cyberse. Doesn't matter. This is really good for being able to climb really high, or to reclimb high into our Link monsters, just in case we have to. And Update Jammer does a really good job of letting us smack things multiple times. So yeah, that's it for these 2. Next, we have 1 Code Talker Inverted and 1 Code Talker. If it were up to me, I would have 2 copies of Inverted and still the 1 copy of Code Talker. Code Talker is normally the first Link monster that you want to go into, especially if you have Parallel Exceed in your hand, because Inverted doesn't have a down pointing arrow, so you wouldn't be able to take advantage of Parallel Exceed's effect. And Code Talker's ability is it gains 500 attack for each monster this card points to, and cannot be destroyed by battle or opponent's card effects while it points to a monster. It's okay. It's not great. It's just, like I said, it's just a stepping stone in the bigger picture of the combo of the combos of the deck. And Code Talker Inverted is where it really gets good, because when it is Link summoned, you can special summon 1 Cyberse monster from your hand to a zone that it points to. So normally you want something up here, and then you put it down there, and then you have one of these 2 zones open. And correct me if I'm wrong, when you play this, while you have Signet Codec on the field, you can proc Codec first to add something to your hand that you can place down with Inverted. So it really does let you explore the options of sort of different routes of the deck. Like I said, the main deck is pretty flexible in terms of how you want to get to the end board. But yeah, that is it. So I would really like to have 2 Inverted. If it were up to me, I would change the Splash Mage or take out one of the following cards that I'm about to show you. So next, we have 1 Decode Talker Extended. This is the card that I'd probably take out. It's basically Decode Talker, and it can attack a second time if a monster that it points to is destroyed by battle or just sent to the graveyard. So it's it's situational in its benefits over running a regular Decode Talker, but at its worst, it's just Decode Talker. So that's it. Next, we run 2 Xcode Talker. I really like Xcode Talker because its ability is when it's Link summoned, you can choose monster zones on your opponent's side of the field up to the number of used extra monster zones and lock your opponent out of being able to use those zones. So you're at least locking your opponent out of being able to use one of their zones. And monsters that this card points to gain 500 attack, and they also cannot be destroyed by card effects. So that's really helpful, again, in terms of protection. And normally it is in the middle of all of your other monsters on the field, so it's really good protection. Next, we run the one Xcode Talker. We run this purely to proc codec, and that is it. Shooting Code Talker, again, it's another Signet codec thing. If you want to go into Xcode Talker, it's really easy to just put this down, then grab your Radiator out of your deck, and then go from there. But this card can attack your opponent's monsters up to the number of monsters this card points to, +1, but then loses 400 attack during damage calculation. And then at the end of the battle phase, you can draw cards equal to the number of cards monsters this card destroyed by battle this turn. I've never done it. I always just skip into the next monster, but it also can be helpful. And we run 2 copies of Xcode Talker. Xcode Talker is basically the MVP of this deck. You know that you're doing well once you hit Xcode Talker and you start doing stuff. It lets you special summon a Link 3 or lower Cyberus monster from your graveyard, and it gives protection, and it gives a small power boost, a bit of a power boost. And that is it for our, oh no, we still have Link 3s. So we run 2 S-Force Justifies. I love Justify. I hate its arrows a bit. I would have preferred, I would hate its arrows less if its requirement to summon out wasn't so annoying, and if it had a down-facing arrow. I'd take this as 3 plus effect monsters, including an S-Force monster, and have it be Link 4 instead of a Link 3 with no downward arrows. Is really annoying to work around, but I thankfully have found a way to work around it. But this card is really fun. You cannot summon monsters to zones that it points to, which is odd because if you have it on the top spot, then you don't control those monster zones anyway. You can target one face-up effect monster your opponent controls, negate its effects until the end of the turn, then move that opponent's monster to their monster zone this card points to. And then, at the start of the damage step, if this card attacks, you can banish all monsters that this card points to. It's really fun. Having Xcode Talker behind this is even more fun because you give your opponent less room to work with, so you just kind of force them in front of Justify, and he just Falcon punches them to the banished zone, so that's really fun. The entire reason I tried building this deck in the first place. So yeah, this is a trip. And last but not least, we have our 2 Link 4s. We have Xcode Talker and our other Xcode Talker. The other one is in the mail. I wanted to wait until it got here to make the video, but sadly, when I received the mail update, it said it would take another 2 weeks, and I don't really want to wait. Plus, Avramax still works since it is a Cyberus monster, and it is relatively easy to bring out with the deck. But anyway, Xcode Talker, your opponent can't respond to its activations, and it gets really big if you summon it off of Update Jammer. Then it can slap twice. So yeah, that's really good, and it blows things up. By the time that you get this out on the field, you have probably 4 or 5 destructions at least. So that's all from the graveyard. You don't have to blow up anything on your field, and that is really fun. And of course, Avramax is Avramax. He's very nice, and he's actually supposed to be Xcode Talker. So so guys, that is it for this deck profile. I hope you liked Security Coders, patch note Security Coders. If there's anything that you guys want to know about, anything more that you want to know about the deck, just let me know down in the comments. If you want to see test hands or how I play the deck, let me know and I'll upload a video of that as soon as possible. And yeah, that is it, guys. As always, please don't forget to like and subscribe, leave your comments and suggestions for future and current content down in the comments section, not in the description, you can't touch the description, down in the comments section below. If you guys are looking for playmats, I have designs on my Inked Gaming artist page. Link to that will also be down in the description. If you guys are looking for anything TCG single related, you can use my TCG Player affiliate link also down in the description below. If you don't want to, that's fine. If you do, I love you forever. And that is it. I am Jello, the casual card gamer. Take care.